a whole litany of stuff there, almost all of which was put to Pete Hegseth. I thought he actually batted away all of that stuff. We got a clip actually of him batting away one of them. Let's take a look.
All they were out to do, Mr. Chairman, was to destroy me. And why do they want to destroy me? Because I'm a change agent and a threat to them, because Donald Trump was willing to choose me, to empower me, to bring the Defense Department back to what it really should be, which is warfighting. So I'm willing to endure these attacks. But what I will do is stand up for the truth and for my reputation. False attacks, anonymous attacks, repeated ad nauseum, printed as nauseum, as facts. We have provided to the committee, Mr. Chairman, and I know you're going to share, on-the-record statement after on-the-record statement from people who have served with me, worked with me at Fox News, Concerned Vets, Vets for Freedom, you name it, from the top of the chain to the bottom, who will say, I treat them with respect, with kindness, with dignity. That's men, that's women, that's black, that's white, that's every background. I have prided myself as a leader of respecting people, being professional.
Michael, I thought that was quite an effective response, really, because a lot of it is just innuendo, hearsay, unsubstantiated allegation. Other stuff has been settled, as Wajahat says. That's not uncommon in America. It's incredibly common for people to do NDA settlements or whatever with no blame or liability attached. Where do you sit with this? I mean, it looks like Hegseth is going to get...
I don't know about you. That's not common.
Sorry?
That's not common, not for me. I don't know about you, but that's not common.
I'm not saying for you or me.
There's a police report where I sexually assaulted a woman and I signed her to an NDA.
In America, that kind of settlement is not uncommon, is my point. Just generally, in the American system, a lot of things get settled that way without any admission of liability or wrongdoing, which is the case with Pete Hegseth. Michael, where do you sit with this?
Well, so much of what Wajahat just said is not true, or as you point out, Piers, is completely unsubstantiated, like the allegations that Pete Hegseth shows up drunk to work. Excuse me one second, Wajahat. I've been on that morning show with Pete a number of times. I've been in studio with him a number of times. The only thing you could accuse Pete of is being too alert and energetic. I found it overwhelming, actually, while I was there, tired, trying to dust the sand out of my eyes. But you suggest that the graduate of Princeton and Harvard, who for decades has been in the U.S. military, served his country honorably, that he's somehow unqualified to work at the Pentagon. The most egregious accusation you make against him, though, is that he's an extremist because he has a tattoo. Could you tell us what the tattoo is?
The tattoos specifically, I did not make the allegation that he's an extremist. It was actually
you
his
repeated the
fellow
allegation.
colleague
So what's
who
the
called
tattoo?
him as an insider threat.
Yeah, right. So what's the tattoo?
Not me.
I can tell you. It says
it was his fellow
No, hang on,
colleague.
let Wajahat answer, because Wajahat raised the tattoo.
Go ahead.
Wajahat, it's a fair question. What is this tattoo that you're so upset about?
It was his colleague. Wait. Two things.
Wajahat, hang on. Simple question. What is this tattoo that you're so upset about?
I wasn't the one upset about it. I was talking about his fellow colleague. This is exactly what I said. His fellow colleague.
Do you know what it was?
In the U.S. Army, called him out as a potential insider threat.
Well, what is the
tattoo? The tattoos on his chest.
What is the tattoo?
Also, I called him an extremist based upon his own book. Read the book,
What
American
is the
Crusade,
tattoo?
his own words.
If you don't know what the tattoo is, just admit it.
Oh, my Lord. Listen,
would you
what is it?
What the tattoo is?
Wait.
No, I'm genuinely intrigued. Do you know what it is or not, Wajahat?
We got a panelist.
Wajahat, do you know what it is or not?
She hasn't spoken yet. A woman hasn't spoken yet.
She's going to come. She's going to answer the question you're not answering. Final question to you, Wajahat.
I did answer it, but
final chance.
I got my colleague right here.
Be honest, Wajahat. Do you actually know what that tattoo is or not?
Listen, what I do know is I read his book, and in his book, if you read it, called American Crusade, in his book, wait a second.
Be honest.
His book.
Be honest.
I am. Look,
ironically,
you guys are putting lipstick on a pig
no one's going to crucify you if you don't know the
Donald
answer.
Trump,
but do you know the answer?
Putting our national security at risk for Pete Hegseth. I am telling you everything, and you guys are finding ways to spin. Why are you guys okay with a man who has an NDA with a woman that he allegedly sexually assaulted?
Do you know what the tattoo is that you got so upset about?
It was his colleague. His colleague called him out as an insider threat, not me. His colleague. And I also said, go to his book, read his words.
But just to be clear, Wajahat, you haven't got
Pete stuff. I am too extreme from the U.S. military. Pete Hegseth's own words. Why are you okay with that, Michael?
Wajahat, you don't know,
Michael, why are you guys okay with that?
You don't know,
literally in his book, American Crusade, he says he's too extreme for the U.S. military.
You don't know, do you?
Oh my gosh! All right, let's look it up right now.
I'd also love to know the names of some of Fox colleagues.
Don't look it up. Let's go back to Michael. Michael,
hang
on, Michael. We gave him this chance. He obviously has no idea. Michael, what is the answer?
This falls along a threat as an insider.
No, Wajahat, I've gone back to Michael now.
2021 pegged Pete Hegseth as a potential
insider. You had 98 chances to answer and you failed the test. Sorry, I'm going to Michael. I'm going to Michael. Don't talk over each other. Michael.
The tattoo in question is called a Jerusalem cross. That this is a medieval Christian symbol, goes back a long time. In fact, at Jimmy Carter's funeral, there was a Jerusalem cross on the floor of the cathedral, and on the program for the funeral, there's one other tattoo that some have suggested could be extremist. It's the phrase Deus Vult, which is a medieval Christian slogan, a long traditional slogan that refers to God's will, and it goes back a long way. These are very traditional, very mainstream Christian symbols that not only are not extreme in any way, but which even the people who want to accuse him of extremism couldn't possibly name. That is pathetic.
And as for the cross that you talked about, yes, Deus Vult, which is the cross that he has, and the slogan that he has,
Deus Vult is a phrase.
An old Christian cross. The phrase, however, was uttered by Crusaders as they were slaughtering Jews and Muslims during the Second Crusade specifically. So it's not just a random cross. It's not just a random phrase.
That isn't true. The phrase that isn't true.
It is true.
The phrase was uttered after the Council of Clermont when Pope Urban II declared the Crusade. And it was actually probably Dieu le veut, but it's been rendered in Latin as Deus Vult. Okay. Has nothing to do with slaughtering Jews. It has nothing to do with slaughtering Muslims, because the Muslims had invaded Europe, not the other way around.
Oh my God, are you really saying that the reason the Crusade, which was sent to the Holy Land to liberate the Holy Land, from whom? From Jews and Muslims.
The Crusade began because the Eastern. I'll tell you why the Crusade began. The Crusade began because the Eastern Emperor asked for help from the Western Pope, because the Seljuk Turks were slaughtering Christians in the Holy Land, because those lands were Christian before the Muslims invaded in the 7th century. So that's why.
No.
Yeah,
those
good
Crusades,
to know Michael's pro-Crusade. He'll get along really well with Pete Hegseth.
Those lands became Christian after the First Crusade. Okay. So let's be very clear.
The lands were Christian in the first and second centuries, and then the Muslims. Islam didn't exist before the 7th century. What are you talking about?
Okay, I could go, listen. I can go all day if you want to talk about the Crusades, but the point is, I can also show you literature.
Quite fascinating, actually.
Where people.
Maybe we should switch the debate.
But what that has to do with Pete Hegseth is it's not that he has a random cross that talks about his faith in Jesus Christ. He used a very specific terminology. But putting all of that aside, a phrase
that was first uttered to defend persecuted Christians in the Middle East, just like they're being persecuted today.
Okay,
if
you want to talk about the Crusades,
that's who you want as the Secretary of Defense. Wonderful.
Someone who defends the persecuted.
Julie, finish your point. Julie, finish your point, and I'll go to Michael to Dave.
My point is that I cannot even believe that something the Vatican apologized for is something that you're defending, which is the slaughter of Jews and Muslims during the Crusades.
What did the Vatican
excuse me, the Vatican said the Crusades.
What are you talking about?
Oh my Jesus! You know what? Why don't you give me a call after this, and I will walk you through exactly.
All right, let's try and bring things back. All right,
the treatment of Muslims in the Crusades. But if you want to talk about,
we'll do a separate Crusades debate another time. I have a home in LA. Which thankfully is still standing, and I hope it continues to do so. But I know so many people who've lost their homes who are incandescent with rage about what they perceive to be persistent failures right across the board of the mayor, Karen Bass, who fled the country, having said she'd never leave the country. She went to Ghana for an inauguration as these winds were coming in, as fires were breaking out. Unbelievable dereliction of duty. You've got the Justin Trudeau of the operation in Gavin Newsom, who I think deserves a lot of heat, literally, for what is going on here, and a lot of accountability. So this idea that they all should be blameless, because, nature, I think is for the birds, isn't it?
Of course. And Whoopi's argument here that this was unpredictable and inevitable would be more persuasive if you hadn't had many people, up to and including President Trump, personally warning Gavin Newsom that this would happen in 2018, 2019, just at the end of last year in 2024. It was not inevitable and an act of nature that 95% of Delta rainwater was sent into the Pacific Ocean rather than filling reservoirs. It wasn't an act of nature that the Pacific Palisades Reservoir was empty, was turned off before the predictable, perennial Santa Ana winds. It was not unpredictable that you'd have 100-mile-an-hour winds. That happens regularly in LA. It was not nature and inevitable that LA wouldn't have cleared its brush. You know, these were basic political problems. Even people who were not expert in it could have seen this coming a mile away and did. And so the residents of LA, I'm a former Angelino myself, they deserve some answers. And the politicians, Newsom and Karen Bass in particular, need to be held accountable.